And we're talking 40 years with salmon then.
Yes.
Now, in closing, this is only the tip of the iceberg. We're going to investigate all these different facets next Monday for 2 hours. Very important date, folks. Mark your calendar. But in closing, the world is waking up to these guys, but they're just buying more and more governments and seem to not care. So a collision, a huge clash is now happening. But as more and more disasters happen, they're not going to be able to cover it up. Do you picture someday in the future these executives going to prison?
Well, I wouldn't be opposed to it, put it that way. You see, I don't know if that's going to happen. What I do sense is that before the end of next year, before the end of 2009, I predict that there'll be enough informed consumers who have clear non-GM choices that it will take GMOs out of the food supply. When we hit the tipping point in Europe, within a single week, virtually every major food company committed to remove GM ingredients. I believe that tipping point will happen in the United States, and it'll happen because of educated consumers with clear non-GM choices.
And that's why they're passing all these laws, quote, against enviro-terrorists, not because they really care about people raiding fur farms, and I am against that, and I am against violence or burning things down because that can hurt innocents, but because they might even provocateur things to then try to ban protesting it or something. And that's the whole agenda that government and corporations are going with now. Just like in Montebello last year at the SPP North American Union meeting, finally we caught them and it actually came out they did it. The police dressed up like anarchists attacked cops as a pretext to attack the peaceful people. I think staying peaceful is very important.
Absolutely. And I've seen some pretty violent protests as I've traveled around the world. And I think, you see, I don't think we should rely on convincing governments. It's an unstable thing. I was invited by the Polish government to give a press conference with the environment minister. He was very much against GMOs. A week later, the government was changed. I was in Thailand working with getting information to cabinet ministers on a particular vote on GMOs. A month later, the government was changed. I think we have to go with a stable base, and that is consumers who are at the top of the food chain, and let them know about what is a healthy choice, and then let them move the market. I think that's where our success will be.
And folks, if you study advertising and psychology, the Pavlovian habitualization is the key. We are habitualized to using cell phones. Another big study this week just came out that it's absolutely causing brain tumors. Children are on them, hundreds of times increase when you use it a lot. Just incredible. We're habitualized for 10 years, 20 years using them. It's almost impossible for me to stop. Now I just check messages on my phone once or twice a day. It took me a year or so to finally get off of it, but for over a decade I've been cooking my brain with it. You habitualize or just pull in the fast food. Stop that first. Then start reading the labels. Get these books and videos. Learn. Your children are worth it. It's going to take some work. This isn't like cigarettes or something where it's just going to give you cancer 30 years later. This is stuff hurting you now. And it's getting worse. They're taking over more major food lines and products. And if they win the war, there's no way to reverse it. These crazies will basically have sunk us. Do you agree with that statement?
Well, I would say that there's evidence that these things can actually have very fast reaction. I mean, one guy fed some potatoes to his rats, and they developed potentially precancerous cell growth in the digestive tract within 10 days. Smaller brains, livers, and testicles, partial atrophy of the liver, damaged immune system. So and not only that, but eating a GM crop now might also allow the genes to transfer into your gut bacteria, where we might stay and continue to produce proteins there that shouldn't be in your digestive system at all for the rest of your life.
Again, there's no may about it. Just with MMR shots and measles shots, it's been directly in major study after major study linked to Crohn's and other type gut disorders, autoimmune responses. And they're now finding the antibodies for the measles shots in those cultures where the DNA of the gut has changed. Now, that's separate from GMO, but it is a GMO vaccine.
Right, and the only human feeding study showed that the genes that were inserted into soybeans ended up transferring to the DNA of human gut bacteria and continued to function long after the person stopped eating genetically engineered soy.
It's the same thing with the honeybees. They, in Germany, has done, 2 studies, England's done 1, then there's limited studies, but in all those studies, they're finding that the Terminator corn pollen for the development of the pesticide has now impregnated the gut of the bee.
Yeah, there was a study from corn, in Germany from a Liberty Link corn. Well, These are just some scenes from next week, so to speak.
Absolutely. So you're saying you know of one study. I've seen 2 others. Have you seen those?
Not with the transfer into the gut microorganisms. I'd like to see that. No. I'll get that from you over the week.
Well, we had a few guests on last year about it. That's where I remember reading about it. Well, listen, thank you for joining us, sir. I really appreciate the time.
My pleasure. Thank you, Alex.
Take care. There goes Jeffrey Smith. Ladies and gentlemen, we're carrying Seeds of Deception, the GMO Trilogy, 2 DVDs and a CD, 1995, 2 films and a CD in one little box. Very well packaged. Genetic Roulette. I know you know about this, but you need to buy it like I did a few weeks ago. You need to read it. You need to put it on television. You need to show it to your children so they start reading the labels. This isn't a joke, okay? We're not playing games here. And by the way, a lot of websites are selling these for twice the price. We're selling them for as inexpensively as possible to get them out to people.